It's Andy. Great to have you. I see the chat is rolling. We have got a ton of fun planned for you today. I've got 30 of the most popular resume questions that we get. So I'm going to run through those. I'm going to do some show and tell. I've got a little something for everybody today, whether you're a college student, a tenured pro, makes no difference. In work, out of work, we're going to have a ton of fun. Couple of housekeeping items that I want to mention. One that I am so excited about, and the registration for my resume writing masterclass closes this coming Monday. So hopefully, for those of you that are here live, you've got a few days. This is a workbook that I'm going to be giving everyone. It's got collegiate and professional resume templates in it. It's got instructions. It's got the topics. It's got samples. It's got a journal in it. I'm going to walk you through everything. Very, very prescriptive. I've not taught anything like this before in public for free. So get in, because it's a one-shot deal. The other thing is, if you haven't grabbed Interview Intervention, Communication That Gets You Hired, the resume writing class and the interview intervention book is a very powerful 1-2 punch that ought to get you where you want to go. I will ship this to you anywhere in the world for $7 anywhere. You get the book, you get the ebook, you get the audiobook, and you get a bonus ebook that's called How to Interview the Employer, 27 great questions to ask before you take any job, so you'll never run out of questions. All right, we got a long list. We came up, Kara, my trusty cohort, she's the lovely lady with the blue wrench in the chat. She grabbed about 40 questions that we get commonly. I trimmed it down to 30 because we only have so much time, and I want to take your questions. So I'm going to run through them in order. We've got everything. So let's dive right in. I'll read them, I'll answer them, I'll read them, I'll answer them, I'll read them, I'll answer them. We'll go through it like that. I got some demos here because I think some of the answers are best to be illustrated. So hopefully everybody's comfy. We got a whole bunch of people here. All right. So question number one that I get is, what's the difference between a resume and a CV? And that's a great question. I get this one a lot, and I know people sometimes use the terms interchangeably. Typically, a resume is used in a commercial environment. So if you are not in the academic profession, the legal profession, the medical profession, or some of those professions where you do an awful lot of research, publication, and those kind of things, a resume is what you should use. And I have a video out there, how to build the ultimate professional resume, and we've been talking a lot about the resume over the last few weeks. There's plenty of samples out there and videos that I've created along with the template that I give you for free. That's the commercial resume format that I recommend. I recommend that you have a career profile at the top, which is like a summary, career highlights next, your professional experience, then your education, and so forth. There are variations, but most of you out there that are watching should go with that format. If you are in some of those other professions that I mentioned, academia, the medical field, things of that nature, where articles and publications and research and other things of that nature are extremely vital to your professional credentials, a curriculum vitae style is more appropriate. And I have a one-on-one coaching client, Charlotte, bless her heart. She has a 34-page CV. She is a PhD and MD. I coach her. She's got a 34-page CV. We don't do anything with it. We don't need to, because it's stellar and it gets her interviews. We work on other things. But so just keep in mind, in the CV, the other thing about the CV is it can run much longer. You just continue to list all the things that you've published and produced, and those types of employers like to see that stuff. So that's the difference between a resume and a CV. I don't spend a lot of time focusing on the CV in my teachings because the lion's share of the people in my community are in the commercial world, but there are plenty of great CV samples that are out there that you can grab on the internet, which I encourage you to do. But if you were looking for the commercial resume format, I would grab mine that I give you with the ultimate professional resume video. And if you come to the writing class, I will give you the Word template. So I hope that helps. All right, next question is, should I write in the first person? So should I use I, my, me, and those types of pronouns in the resume? Resumes are typically, they read a little better when you don't have those pronouns, and when you don't have any of those kinds of pronouns in there. The statements themselves, the sentences, the summaries, and all that good stuff can be fragmented, almost wholly sentence-like, but without including those nouns. So I don't recommend that you put any type of first-person nouns or pronouns in the resume ever. It's not a biography. It's not a cover letter. Reserve the pronouns for those. So write your sentences and your bullets and all that good stuff without them. I'll even show you some samples here in a bit. So I hope that helped on that one. Next question. All right, we're moving right along here. Next question is how long should the resume be? So we've got different answers here depending on who you are. If you're a college student or a recent college graduate where you're in your first year or 2 or 3 or so of your professional experience, I recommend a one-page resume. One page. If you live in a country that requires, we work with some folks. We just did a resume for somebody in Europe who wants to relocate from Korea to Germany. Apparently, the style there is they want a one-page format. There's other nuances that country apparently likes. So we've gotten hers down to one page. So you need to make sure that you're aligning whatever your resume format's going to look like with whatever the local culture is or the requirements or that particular company's request. But generally speaking, if you're in college or recently graduated, one page. If you are a working professional of any kind of tenure, 5 years or more, 2 pages is certainly okay. And going back to something I mentioned a little earlier about the format that I recommend, if you have a career profile or summary at the top, then your career highlights, and then your professional work experience and your education below that, and any kind of extracurricular stuff that you need to put in there that you're doing, what I always like to see and what we try to design in my programs is the top half of the first page is a summary and highlights. The bottom half of the first page is professional experience. The top half of the second page is professional experience. And the bottom half is all that other stuff, education and all the other goodies. So I recommend 2 pages. If you're going into a CV style, you can go longer. But I don't think there's anybody out there that needs a longer than 2-page resume. I can get my entire 30-year history down to 26 words. I think you should be able to get a 20 or 10 or 15 or 25-year work experience down to 2 pages. So I hope that helps on how long should the resume be. All right, next question. I just want to make sure I got all these. There's so many of them. Should I create multiple versions of the resume? I am a proponent of having one main version of your resume. It gets exhausting when you have to maintain 2 or 3 or 4 different versions. So my recommendation is, in assuming that you're targeting one type of job, have one resume. And then what I recommend that you do is you alter the resume based on the particular job or company or job description that you're applying for. So if the nomenclature in your resume does not fit exactly as if a computer would recognize it, you might want to make some tweaks. So for example, we do a lot of work with, Mile Walk, my executive search firm. We recruit a lot of salespeople. I also have a lot of salespeople in the Mile Walk Academy training programs that you all typically enroll in. There's many different ways to describe the term sales. Some companies call them account executives. Some companies call them business development managers, business development executives, and so on. Some people call them sales reps. So if you are a business development representative and you are applying for an account executive position titled in the company that you're looking to apply to, there's nothing wrong with using their nomenclature. So I think that that's important. So instead of having multiple versions of the resume, I recommend simply from a maintenance standpoint, have one main version and then tweak it based on job descriptions, keywords, and other things. And the other thing that I always recommend, those of you that have been following me for a long time, you know I have a relationship I've decided to have a relationship with JobScan. So it's jobscan.co. The link is in the description. If you want to, before you submit your resume through an applicant tracking system, JobScan is a great tool to just do a little check. You put your resume into the system. It's free, at least for the first month or so. And then you put the job description. You just cut and copy. You put the job description into JobScan, and it will tell you how closely you align, and it will make suggestions. It does a whole bunch of other stuff. And if you want to, I demo it in one of the videos I created called 3 Free Tools for Your Resume to Beat the Applicant Tracking System. If you want to check out that video, you'll get a little more on that. But I recommend one version, so I hope it helps on that question. All right, next question. Should I include my home address? I like the home address. They're eventually going to ask you for it when you get hired, because you will. But if you don't want to put your home address, that's totally okay. But I would recommend putting a city and a state, or a city and a province or region, or whatever is the proper nomenclature or geography for your area. Employers like to know that you where you are. It's okay if it's a remote position, but if it's a local position, it's going to do you a lot better if you are in fact local. If you are relocating, I give you some much more detailed guidance. I have a video out there on tips to get an out-of-state job, where I talk about if you know you're going to be moving, it's okay to put your address in to the city or state that you are moving toward, so that the employer knows that you're on your way. But other than that, I do recommend, I like the home address, but it's okay to put a city and a state or a country, province or whatever it might be for wherever you live. So I hope that helps. All right, on we go. Should I put my home or cell number at the top? So this one is interesting. I always recommend that you put your cell phone. You should always be reachable should a prospective employer want to call you. The other thing too about the cell phone, make sure that, because you can control the voicemail of your cell phone, it's your personal voicemail. I highly recommend that it be your voice, not your kid's voice, not the dogs barking in the background, not you recording it in a bar or anywhere else that it's loud. It should just be a very professional greeting, knowing full well that a prospective employer might call you. So I recommend the cell phone, I recommend a clean voicemail, and I recommend that the voicemail box not be full, ever, ever, ever. I will not call people back when their voicemail box is full. I will not send them an email that says, I tried you, your voicemail box was full. If you want the job, clean out the voicemails. Okay, enough ranting on that one. All right, let me see. Hang on. I want to make sure I'm not losing track. I think we are on number 7. All right. Should I use my full name even though everyone calls me by my nickname? So in my case, my proper name is Andrew. I like all of you and everybody else that I meet with to call me Andy. And so there's a few different things to know about, when you fill out the top of the resume. I recommend, generally speaking, that you use your proper name. It's easier for the employer. They're going to do background checks, other things. They might look you up on your social sites. I would try to be consistent. If you just use Jim and you don't use James, that's fine. But I recommend that you use your proper name. But what I don't recommend is you adding in parentheses at the top your nickname. So I don't want to put Andrew, open the parenthesis, Andy, close the parenthesis, LaCivita, because what that does is it wreaks havoc with the applicant tracking systems. So I mentioned to you about JobScan. If you run your resume through JobScan, you'll notice that it recommends not doing things like that because the applicant tracking system has difficulty reading things that are not very simple and obvious. It doesn't like acronyms. It doesn't like a lot of other things throughout the resume, but it also doesn't like them at the top. So I just recommend using your proper name. It's the easiest way to go. You can always use an intro to say, please call me Andy or whatever it is. Now, there are some of you that have that are like, for example, when people send me resumes, sometimes they have birth names that are either lengthy, complicated to pronounce, they're foreign to whatever country that you're applying to, and so they have nicknames. Now, in those cases, what I would probably do is I probably would put that in a cover letter or in an email or some other way, but I still would leave the proper name up at the top of the resume, and then I would just make sure that if you were given an interview, that you let the recruiter, the human resources person, know that this is your nickname, and let everybody call you that. So that's just a lot easier to do. Keep your paperwork clean. All right, next one, and it's still along these lines. So the next question: should I include suffixes on my name, and not senior, junior, and so forth? And by the way, even if you are a senior or a junior, I recommend keeping that off. But should I include suffixes on my name, such as MBA, PhD, and so forth? So the one thing that I was mentioning earlier, and this is commonly known by HR people and recruiters that use applicant tracking systems. Generally speaking, I try to keep the top of the resume and your name as clean as possible. I would not add a whole bunch of things like MBA and PMP and all this other stuff, CFP, whatever those certifications are that you have. If you want those to be picked up by the applicant tracking system or people who are reviewing your resume, what I recommend is that you put them in the career profile. So the career profile is a summary about you, and there's certainly a spot in there for you to say, well credentialed, including an MBA from Harvard and a PMP certification. It's up at the top. People will see the letters very quickly. And as a matter of fact, I even encourage you to spell that out, because here again, applicant tracking systems don't always love acronyms like that. It's better to spell it out and then put PMP in parentheses, but it'll get caught, it'll get picked up. Don't worry that it's not right at the top. People that are skimming your resume, I don't know if you guys were at my live office hours last week, but I showed you a little way that people can easily see and skim, even when the letters and the words are jumbled and not spelled correctly. Trust me, they can pick up MBA and PMP right away. It's easy. The applicant tracking system will pick that up as well. So I highly recommend. Now, if you're a doctor, PhD, and you are in, Charlotte, for example, she's both. She has them up at the top. I think it's totally okay, because in her line of profession, that's expected. She's not putting her resume in an applicant tracking system. It's a completely different type of job search. But in those cases, I think it's appropriate. So I don't have a hard and fast rule. I recommend that you keep your name and everything up at the top as clean as possible. All right. Should I include a picture? If you are in the United States and you are not a model, meaning you are not applying for, modeling or acting or something that requires them to see what you look like, I would never, under any circumstance, put a picture on your resume. Only bad things can happen in either direction. So I would not put your picture on a resume. I did mention earlier that I'm working with a woman. She's in my boot camp. She's in a one-on-one coaching client of mine. And in where she was moving toward, they want pictures on the resume, so we put one on the resume. But if you are, generally speaking, if you are applying for a commercial position in the United States, leave the picture off. It's very easy for people to find what you look like. Put your picture on LinkedIn or things of that nature. It'll be easy to find you. Don't take up real estate on your resume. It clutters it. It makes it difficult to format it properly. The applicant tracking systems don't like pictures, and your resume either. So I would definitely stay away from putting a picture on your resume. But rolling right along, the question is, should I include my LinkedIn profile on my resume? I, for one, I wouldn't put it on mine. It's easy for people to find me on LinkedIn. If you are John Smith or have a popular name, then I might put it on there. You know that if you think your LinkedIn profile is going to be an asset, Not everybody's LinkedIn profile is an asset. Not everybody has it properly filled out like they should when they're job searching. But if you do have it filled out and you do feel it's an asset, you have a lot of connections, you got a lot of good credentials, maybe you've written some articles, maybe you've gotten some awards, and hopefully you've gotten some recommendations on LinkedIn, then I would include it. It's totally okay. It's not that much additional information, and if you use the top portion of your resume economically, including your email address, it shouldn't really be a problem. So one way or another, it's okay to include it if you want, if you feel it'll be an asset. All right. Number 11, should I use an objective statement? Objective statements, I have absolutely no idea where these came from, unlike cover letters and other things that I understand. But an objective statement has absolutely no use on anybody's resume for anything, no matter who you are. So I cannot be any more clear than I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're in school. I don't care if you've been working for 40 years. I don't care if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a salesperson, or whoever. You never should include an objective statement on your resume. The resume is about what you offer. It is a marketing vehicle to get somebody to say, I want to speak to this person. An objective statement is what your personal objective is about your job or your career or your life or whatever. The resume is about what you offer, not what you want, not what you want. So I've got loads of stuff out there on what to put in place. You can check out my videos on the career profile instead of the objective statement. And last week's live office hours, if you haven't seen it on resume do's and don'ts, I actually show you a picture of what the career profile should look like and what to do instead of an objective statement or a table of skills. So check that out. I think you'll find that helpful. You'll see exactly what the profile should look like and what will be more beneficial and what will be more eye-catching. So I hope that helped on that one. All right, next question. Do I list my education or experience first? So I am a proponent of not listing your education at the top, no matter who you are. And I have qualifications for this, and I will give you the exceptions. But if you are, for most of you who've been working for quite a while, even if you've been working for 1 year, I don't care. The minute you walk out of school, you're a working professional, and your education goes to the bottom of your resume. Most of you. Have your career profile, have your career highlights, put your education at the bottom. If you are a student, I still recommend you have a profile at the top. You don't call it a career profile because you don't have a career yet, but you have a profile. If you want to know exactly what that profile looks like, I have a video out there called This One Trick Will Make Your College Resume Stand Out. There's a video. You can get my collegiate resume template for free, and I talk to you exactly about what the profile should look like. Then I would put my education below the profile. One more caveat. If you are somebody who is changing careers, we have a lot of people in my job search bootcamp program and in the Mile Walk Academy who want to become paralegals, want to become nurses, want to become something else. They've taken turns. Some of them were legal administrators and then went to paralegal school and wanted to make the jump. Some of them were just making wholesale career changes. If that's you and you went back to school to get a degree, an MBA, a paralegal degree, a nursing degree, whatever it is, then what I recommend is a career profile and then your education. Move it up from the bottom and then put it right below the profile. That's okay because you're making that change, and that's important to highlight because remember, the top center of the front page is going to get the most attention, and it's your best chance. Last week I think I called it your smile, but it's like your billboard to capture their attention, the reviewer's attention, the recruiter, the HR person, the hiring official, whoever's looking at it, with what you're bringing to the table. So in that case, I would put it second. So I hope that helps. So if you're most people, commercial workers, the education goes to the bottom. If you're a college student, the education goes second. And if you're making a turn where you've taken the education and you've gotten a degree or certification or whatever it is, you can move it right below the profile as well. So I hope that one helped. All right. Okay, this is good. We are, okay, wait, we're through 12. How are we doing? 25 minutes. Okay, so wait, we're going to go to the screen because I'm going to show you, I got to show you some. All right, we get a lot. I get this question a lot. How do I handle unusual job titles? Let's take a peek really quick. Look at this little sample that I feverishly scratched this morning. Hey, Kara, do me a favor. Can you let me know if the kind of the two samples of the network engineer are in there and we look all good? It looks good on my end, but just so you guys can see this, we have a lot of people in my community who have unusual internal titles. And I was just showing you here for illustrative purposes, but I mean, we get all kinds of crazy stuff. And I get a question a day in, day out, in email or on my YouTube channel or my blog. Hey, I'm called this. What do I put on my resume? Now, here's what I would do. You've got the company name right here. And then underneath, this person is not really called a network engineer. Internally, the person is called engineer 3. So now, if this person is a network engineer, there's system engineers, administrators, sysadmins, there's all kinds of different engineers. There's development engineers and so on. This person wants to make sure that she is aligning the nomenclature with what the rest of the world will recognize. One of the things you can do is you can bury it. So underneath, and I haven't filled all this out, and hopefully those of you that are coming to the resume writing class, by the way, can you give me a shout in the chat if you're coming to the resume writing class on the 28th? Say, I'm coming. This is a technique where you can give the outside world something it will understand. Call it a network engineer. And then what I like to do is I always like to give a quick little blurb about framing the reader's mind with what I was doing as a network engineer. So I served as a key member of this is actually a security network engineer. So maybe they put security network engineer or whatever to support Fortune 500 clients, operating environments, so on and so forth, titled internally as. And then this way you're getting it in there. So you're covering your basis. Should you feel concerned that you are putting a resume out into the world where you're not calling yourself exactly what you were called? Another way you can do it is this down here is just a second example where you can put it in here and you could either just put it in parentheses or you could put internally known as or something like that. That way you're able to cover your bases there. So this is just a couple of quick ways that I would go about, doing that. I know a lot of you have funky titles like that. We see them, and then I get resumes, and I don't know what that person actually does unless they really explain it to me. And that's even worse because now I have to spend more energy really looking and trying to figure that out. And you want to make sure that you're making the narrative the story I'm getting is easy to digest and as quickly to digest as possible. So I hope that helps. If you have unusual titles, you can do it like this, and you can also do it like this on your LinkedIn profile if you'd like. That way nobody from your company who sees your LinkedIn profiles gets their knickers in a twist because you called yourself something that the public would understand. So I hope that helps on that one. That's a good one. I've got more samples coming. The next question is, should I use tables and graphs? I would never use tables ever. Don't use graphs, don't use tables, don't use pictures, don't hide tables, don't make columns, don't do anything like that. Number one, they're boring. Number two, applicant tracking systems don't like it. My recommendation is if you have a list that you want to include, and typically the only lists you should be including are your core competencies, your certifications, and things of that nature. It's okay to list one comma, list one comma, list one comma, and so forth. It's easier for the computer systems to read, and trust me when I tell you that any trained person looking at your resume will glance at that and they will pick out what they need to. They will pick out what they need to. They know what to look for. They know what to look for. White space in this case is not your friend. It's not your friend. It works against you. I don't care what you heard. It works against you. We have entirely too many statistics informal surveys and other things to verify this. So I would not use tables or graphs or any pictures or any bullets with funky graphics or anything. Keep it as simple as possible. Hope that helps. On that one, should I list company names first or, okay, should I list company names first or title first? And I always recommend that you list the company name and then you indent the title. So it's much more effective for you to show who you worked for. Most people are looking for good companies. Good companies, people, does not mean big companies. There could be a 10-person company that's the best company in that space doing what they do for that thing. So just make sure you put the company name first, the title underneath it indented slightly. And the reason you want to do that is people look for companies and they want to know that you've worked for good companies. And the other thing is it also sends a subconscious message that you are more of a team player. If you are putting your title first, it connotates that you care more about yourself and who you are than the team you played for. And while that may not be the case, you're not there to explain how selfless you are. You are, and it's all kinds of things. I mean, I've studied so many of these. Here's another one I'll give you as an example if you don't believe me. Any of you folks that know handwriting analysis out there, actually, all of you, go sign your name somewhere right now. Sign your name, however you sign it. If you sign your first initial bigger than your first initial of your last name, your first initial of your first name bigger than your first initial of your last name, you care more about you than the family name. I couldn't make this stuff up. So go like things like this. While people may not have read a 200-page book on handwriting analysis, they certainly know how to read resumes and the messages that these things send. So you want to be thoughtful. Put the company name to the left, and I'll even show you in a little while exactly how to do that. Okay. Should I organize my experience by function or chronologically? So the question is, how should I lay out my work experience section of my resume by function or chronologically? And this is something I am very passionate about and something I am a strong proponent of, is make sure to use the chronological format. So that's company that you currently work for. So reverse chronological format. The company you currently work for, then your title and so on, and then the company that you worked for previously and your title and so on. People will be able to pick up your skills. Everybody, every human who looks at a resume, every person for all time will think in terms of time. So after the individual gets a sense of who you are, the next question they're going to ask themselves is, where are you? Where are you now? Where were you before that? They want to see that. They want those questions answered easily. They want to see your evolution throughout your career. The moment that you switch to a functional resume or a skills-based resume where you start grouping your companies by your skill or by your function. So I was a project manager at these 3 companies. The reader, the reviewer, the hiring official, or whoever starts to get suspicious as if you are hiding something. It's very hard to follow. And the first thing that I think when I get a functional resume, and I don't even like to read them, and most of the times I won't, the first thing I think of is, what are you trying to hide? Are you trying to hide an employment gap or any of that thing, anything like that? And I think I said this last week, I don't mind that you have an employment gap. Just let me see where it is. Let me see who you are in terms of chronology. So I would stick to the chronological format. If you're coming to the writing class, we're going to go through this quite a bit. We're going to show you exactly how to take care of all these nuances, but definitely stick to the chronological format. All right. Can I list non-paid experience? So the next question, can I list non-paid experience? You can. There's nothing wrong with that if it was fruitful. If you are currently in school and you are working 10 hours a week as a volunteer to do something that is related to your field of studies or what you want to get your job in, it's okay to put it as work experience. If you are a professional who is working 10 years and you are in between jobs and it's been 6 months and you've been doing other stuff that is non-paid, that's related to what it is you do as a profession, it's okay to put it right in there in the work experience section. It doesn't matter that you didn't get paid. It doesn't matter. It was still a job. You were still spending time. You were either honing skills, doing good things, whatever it was, getting experience, but it's okay to put non-paid experience in the work section. If it's unrelated, to what you do as a professional, I would put it at the bottom and I would call it volunteer experience. So that's the difference there, and I hope that clarifies that. All right. How do I list multiple jobs for the same employer? All right, this is a great question. How do I list multiple jobs for the same employer? Let me do a little show and tell here. Back to my screen, and let me see here. Here we go. There we go. All right, for this one, oh man, I took an abridged I actually grabbed, don't use this as a template, folks. This is like one of my old resumes. So I worked for in Forte Corporation from 1999 or 1998 or something like that to 2003. And I had two different titles, and I had some internal title changes. Just what I like to do is list your company name up at the top left, then a little corporate summary. Then I was more recently, before I left, I was the vice president of a North American business unit. And so I just went into what I did, and I might have had another bullet or two there. But from stylistically, just list what you were in the years, and then list what you were in the years. And then this total over here just kind of shows, you know, what that I was there for 4 or 5 years, whatever it was, and those were my functions, among other things. But it's easy to see when you drop it down like that. It's very clean. It's easy for the person to see, you know, I was a vice president. They might not understand what delivery group leader was, and I might even change that nomenclature, as I mentioned in one of the previous questions. But effectively, they get what it was that I did. So that's the way I would lay it out on the resume if I had multiple titles. And if you had a third title, just drop the third title, whatever it is. And hopefully you're showing a nice evolution there, that you were growing in responsibility. So that's the way I would lay that out. All right. How far back should I go when I list experience? How many years? So if you are, these are, by the way, these are preferences and general guidelines. Everybody's got their own story, but number one, I like to see the whole thing. So if you've been working 30 years, show me 30. But I understand some people get concerned about ageism and age discrimination. If that's the case, then what I would do is I would probably trim it down to 15 to 20, depending on where your break point is. So, you know, if you are working, say, 25 years, but you worked at your first company for 10 years, you've got a little thing to play with there. You can't say, well, I was working, you can't cut that in half, because they're going to do an employment background check on you. So you want to be really careful. But if you've got a nice break point, you can show the last 20. I don't care who you are, just make sure the resume is not longer than 2 pages. And I'm going to show you a neat trick along the way here somewhere about just how you condense one of those the stuff earlier in the years. But I personally like to see everything, but it's okay to lop it off. But I would, if you have been working for a long time, I would really try to show at least 15 to 20 of those years, because everybody that I interview, I ask, is that your first job? Is that your first job? Because you may have experience earlier in your years that needs to come out. So you're eventually going to have to discuss it. But for purposes of laying down your resume, I would say 15 to 20 is ample. All right. Okay. All right. How do I list? Here's a question. How do I list when a company is acquired by another company? So you worked for an organization that is now acquired by another organization. Let me show you exactly what this looks like. Oop, there was my bonus. Hang on. All right. So I mentioned, let me get this here. There we go. All right, I mentioned that one of the organizations that I worked for in Forte, and I was there between 1999 and 2003. Well, while I was there, the company was in Forte, and that's great. But since I left, this company, Business and Decision, has acquired them. So there's a couple of ways you can do this, and I'm going to leave this to your discretion. So depending on who acquired your company or whether you were still there or whatever, it doesn't matter. These are two different company names, and sometimes companies are acquired by other companies in their space, and the company who acquired them is more well known. Sometimes companies are acquired and the company who acquired them is not as well known. So there are situations where some organizations are acquired by holding companies, private equity companies, other organizations that are not necessarily in their space. So you can do this one of two ways. You can list it depending on which you think will work to your advantage. You can list the company that you worked for that has more cachet in the name, and then the acquiring company, you would just say doing business as. This is what they're now doing business as. Okay? And if another company acquires them, you just keep going to the most current company. Or if you think the acquiring company has more cachet in the name, then I would put it over here and just say I worked for Business and Decision, formerly doing business as in Forte Corporation. So that's another way to lay it out. But either way, just pick the one you think is more appropriate or to your benefit based on what you think will go over better when somebody's reviewing your resume. So that's what I would do if a company is acquired. All right, here's a question. We're going to go back to show and tell here. How do I list contract work? So for all of you contractors out there that either have contracting work earlier in your career or maybe you're doing contracting work now, let me show you exactly how I would lay out my contracting work. Pop back over to the screen here in a second. All right. All right, all you contractors and consultants can rejoice. Here's what we've got. So over on the left, I would list it like it's a company. You can use whatever proper terminology is appropriate. If you're an S Corp, fine. If you're an LLC, fine. If you've got partners and it's an LLP, that's fine. If you're a sole proprietorship, that's fine. Whatever you are, you just list whatever the name is, and then, for however long you've been doing it. Sole proprietorship, which provides project management, business analyst services to small to medium-sized companies, and a little summary here. I work on projects ranging from 1 to 5 million in budget and 12 to 33 people on the projects. Now that kind of covers all the stuff I'm doing. And then what you can do is you can go and list off the projects however you want. So you could say I was a project manager, or you could say served as a project manager or something of that nature for Pepsi, an international company that fills people's bodies with sugary stuff. You get the idea, and then talk about what you did. So I managed all facets of, designing, implementing, architecting, key stakeholder management, risk management, committee meeting organization, whatever it is that you did for whatever it is that the project did. And then the other way you can list it out is business analyst or whatever. It's okay in these cases that you don't start out with an action verb. You're trying to give the reader an indication that you are doing these kinds of things, especially if you've got kind of an eclectic group of companies and so on. Now, if you've been out of work, let's say for a year, and you've been consulting and you've done 3 projects, no one needs to know that you did one for a month and then you did one for 2 months and so on and so on and so forth, that you had gaps or maybe it was choppy or up and down. It's totally okay. This is a wonderful way to be honest about the fact that you worked on these projects, and no one's the wiser, and from a paperwork standpoint, it's accurate. Now, if you are a contractor that has been contracting for a very long time, One thing I would not do, the big mistake that I see people make, is try to list every project they've ever been on in 3 lines of bullets per project, and they got 2 pages of this stuff. There's no way on earth I'm ever going to go through that, nor is anybody else. Pick the biggest and baddest projects you worked on, and then what you can do is in the summary section that I mentioned, you can say, happy to provide other, attachment with more detail, additional projects. And then you could just have a whole running list of everything that you've done. Because I know some of you have worked for 10 years as a sole proprietor or a contractor or whatever, and now you want to get to full-time work. It's okay. Just have an addendum. Have a separate piece of paper that allows you to give that to them. But don't just send it. Ask them if they want it and offer it. If they want it, send it to them. But don't just shove it off to them. Don't give them more things to look at. You want them to just kind of be dazzled by your regular resume. So I hope that helps for all you contractors out there. All right. Question is, should I include punctuation with the bullets? The answer is yes. There should be virtually no hanging bullets on your paper. Education is a little different, certifications is a little different, but when you are writing your career profile, when you are writing your career highlights, when you are writing your work experience section and the professional experience, every single statement and sentence should be punctuated. All right, I hope that helps. Yeah, actually, I spend a lot of time in resume reviews putting little dots at the end of people's sentences, so make sure you have them. Should the bullets be complete sentences? Actually, because you're not using, so on your resume, the question is, on your resume, should the bullets be complete sentences? And the answer is no, because you're not using your noun, I, my, me, and so forth. So you're not using those pronouns. So you're taking the noun out of the sentence, and so all the sentences will read a little fragment like. That's totally okay. It's totally okay. So don't worry about it. It does not have to be a complete sentence. These are mild fragments, and you can also eliminate a lot of these the letter A, the, the. You can eliminate a lot of these filler words where people know what the gist is. Remember, no one, and I mean nobody, is reading a resume. They skim them very quickly. You don't need to have a lot of extra stuff in there that they're not paying attention to. So I hope that helps. All right, we are rolling. Kara, just make sure I don't know, I think I might have skipped around on you. Let me see. Hang on, folks. Give me 1 second here. I think I caught everything. All right, I'm on 25. Should I include the month and year when listing experience, or just the year? If you are early in your career, first 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, you can include months if you want. If you have no gaps, meaning you didn't have any time off and you went from March of this year and then right in March you went into your next, you went in your next job and so on, then use months. If you've been working 10 years, you want to drop the months off, that's okay too. On the applications that a lot of companies have you fill in, they will probably ask you for the months. So if you are filling applications, you might have applications out. You might have to put that in. But on your resume, you don't necessarily need to. And I would say anybody that's working 10 years or longer, you don't really need them. And especially if it's all clean. And if you have any employment gaps in there, where you were off for a couple of months here or there, it's a lot easier for you to say, I worked from 2012 to 2015, and then 2015 to present, I did this job, even though there was a little gap in there. It's a neat little trick. It's a kind of a well-known secret, but it's totally okay to do. Should I list my certifications? You should list your certifications. However, don't list them in tabular form. We talked about no tables in the resume, so don't list them in a tabular form. I recommend that you just list them, or you list them with commas, and I would probably, if you have a lot of them, I would list them toward the bottom of the resume, and I would pull forward the most important and the most impactful and the most relevant into the career profile. So if you're a network engineer certified as a CCIE That's big deal. Okay, and a lot of these guys, they put CCIE next to their name and then all that, and even their number when they don't need to. They could simply put certified as a CCIE in as one of the sentences in their career profile. The applicant tracking system will pick it up. Trust me when I tell you, any recruiter or HR person who's reading that resume is going to want to talk to that person. But you can bring them forward to the top, but you don't need to make the top messy. And if you have multiple certifications that are required for the job, like I'm a CPA and a whatever, you can list those. It's totally okay. But I would not go wild at the top of the resume with that. I would just put the most appropriate ones that need to be seen, and then toward the bottom for applicant tracking and computer purposes, just list them all at the bottom. All right. Should I list awards? This one drives me absolutely crazy. Your awards mean nothing to the outside world as it relates to you getting an interview or getting hired. What is important about those awards is what you did to achieve them. So, when I see a salesperson's resume and it says President's Club, that means nothing to me. Zero. You could have been President's Club because you had 8 other knuckleheads who didn't know what they were doing selling. And you had, by default, were the one that got the award because you sold half your quota. So it means nothing. And actually, it's a little narcissistic. So what I prefer that you do is tell the story in the bullet of what you did and what the benefit was and the impact was and how the world benefited and appreciated your existence. And then as an afterthought, add you won an award as a result of doing that. So I sold $33 million in revenue in 2018 to 50 companies and blah, blah this and blah, blah that. Semicolon. Earned top salesman of the year and President's Club award. Afterthought. So that's how I would rather you, for most of you, by the way, if you win an Emmy and you're an actor or an Oscar or whatever, you can put that in the front left of your, Oscar award winning actor. But for most of you, the awards are, those are it's corporate nonsense. So I don't really care about those. No one cares about those except you. But use them to your advantage by talking about what you did to achieve them. That's a fact. That's the fact of the matter. So I hope that helps. All right. Can I omit my graduation date if I'm worried about ageism? So you went to school, you graduated like me in the 80s, and you're a little concerned that employers are going to cut you out because you're a old fogey. That is totally okay. I have no problem with you dropping the year you graduated. You can take it off your LinkedIn profile. You can take it off your resume. They're gonna do an employment check on you and a background check. And if on your resume you said I got a BS in EE from Iowa State in 1988, they are gonna check. So, but either way, if you don't tell them the year, they're gonna check anyway. But sure, you can drop it off for ageism. You can compress the work years. And one other thing that I didn't show you that I think I want to show you, because I get this question a lot. So I'm gonna this is kind of an extra one here. So we're not counting this one, but I get a lot of questions about, Andy, I can't possibly get my resume down to 2 pages. Okay, all of you, I'm 52 years old. Okay, I've been working for 30 years since the minute, actually I've been working for longer than that. The minute I walked out of school in 1988, I went to Anderson Consulting. I then left, and after I left, they changed their name, but I had a 10-year run that I wouldn't break up on my resume. So I got 10 years, 100 clients, $1 zillion, and about 1,000 people that I managed down to I don't know how many words that is. That's compression. So I took less than an inch on my resume to talk about 10 years of my life in the early part of my work history. So trust me when I tell you that anybody out there that looks at this resume, if I go for a job, is going to say, oh, you had a wonderful run with a great company and you did a lot of cool stuff in terms of information technology and management consulting, and you managed people and you brought money in, and I'm sure you did a lot of good stuff. And that's all they need to know. So I'm guessing a lot of you out there that are like me or my age have stuff like this. Now, I'm not saying it's a 10-year run, and maybe it was a 3-year run and a 2-year run and then a 5-year run, and you could kind of lop those off if you want. But this is a way, this whole paragraph here is a way for you to compress the bottom of the resume so that you're not taking up another page trying to explain what you did for 10 years, because no one cares. But it's nice that you did that, and they get it. They get what they need to. Okay, let's go back, and here we go. All right. Should I include, okay, number 29. Should I include my hobbies on my resume? Only if they are incredibly, incredibly germane. And the one I always use, because I run marathons, Kara runs marathons, I do all kinds of kamikaze stuff, and but I don't put I'm a marathoner on my resume because I'm a white-collared or orange t-shirted, exec or coach or whatever. It doesn't really add to me. If you really are proud of it, go ahead. I think it's taking up real estate that doesn't need to be there. If you are going to go work for active.com in the sporting arena, then the fact that you are a marathoner or geek out about shoes is something that's probably appropriate. But for most of you that are in the white collar, organizations, a lot of that stuff doesn't matter. I would rather see the volunteer work, the board work, the advisory councils, the other stuff that you're doing. That stuff to me is cool. All right, so, and we're coming up on number 30, and then I have a bonus. Should I include a list of references? So on the resume, should I include a list of references? You do not need to include a list of references, and you especially do not need to say available on request, references available on request. Everybody knows that. Most companies are not doing a whole heck of a lot to even check your references. They're running background checks on you, and they're trying to do informal reference checks. They'd rather talk to people they know that might know you, because let's be honest, if you can't get 3 people to speak nicely about you, that's pretty bad. So I wouldn't worry about that. I wouldn't worry about the references. All right, that's 30. I did it. It's only 11:57. Don't worry, we got time for your questions, but I got a bonus for you. I get this one a lot. Should I hire, I get at least one of these a day. One of these a day. Should I hire a professional resume writer? And could you, Andy, recommend somebody? So my answer to all those people is I would never recommend a resume writer. I wouldn't recommend that you get a resume writer, and I don't want to write your resume for you. It's not going to come out like you like it. And I want you, can you yell in the chat if you've hired a resume writer? And if you're happy, clap. If you are unhappy, say, it's no good. I get a lot of resumes from people who say this. I spent $1,000 to hire a resume writer. I spoke with the person for 15 minutes or half an hour. They really just wanted an old resume of mine. They had some questions. They put it together. I got the resume back. It was wholly subpar. Didn't sound like me. And I had to up pay because we had to go through another revision or 2, or I exceeded my number of revisions. Nobody, and I mean nobody, cares about your career as much as you do. You can outsource a lot of things, but your career is not one of them. And getting somebody to write about it is not one of them. What I would recommend, and you guys know this about me, first thing I would do is I'd get in my free writing class. Second thing is, if you want more help, there's the Job Search Bootcamp, and I will teach you even further how to write it and spend more time with you on it. Or you can invest in another trainer's program. Let somebody teach you how to write it, get the framework, get the templates, get the samples, and so on. And then you write it. You will be able to write it a lot faster than you think. And if you don't care enough about your career to take the time to write your resume, then you don't care enough. But trust me, you will be so much better off getting instruction on how to write it. And in my boot camp, there is a add-on service for me to review it. Then for those people, and there's a lot of them that take me up on this, I take their resume after I teach them how to write it, and then what I do is I literally go through it line by line, letter by letter, period by period. A lot of times I'm adding those, and I edit it. But they have all the raw material in there in the proper format, in the proper section, and their resume comes out and they love it. And so that's what I would recommend. So I would never, ever, no matter what price that somebody is trying to tell you to pay. I did somebody's resume last week who said, I spent $300 just to write it. They spent 15 minutes on the phone with me. It cost me another $150 for another revision, and I needed another revision, but I was not about to pay because I was so frustrated. Then they had to pay me to do it. So this is, and to learn how to do it and so on. So don't make that mistake. And I'd love for you to use my programs, but go use somebody else's. I don't care. But whatever you do, don't hire a professional resume writer. And if you are a professional resume writer, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you, but that's how I feel about it. So that's it. Okay, if you are loving this, hit 123 people. That's pretty good. You hung in there for an hour. Hit the thumbs up. Let me know how you're doing. I'm going to go to the chat here. And that was pretty good. So I don't know. That was 31. Actually, that was 32 because I snuck in the compression item at the bottom. I think I got everything. Kara, let me know if I missed any. Remember, folks, this class. So wait, one more thing. This resume writing class, there's, Kara, can you put the link in the chat? This thing is, you will never, I'll tell you what. If you come to this resume writing class, and you tell me it's not better than anything you've actually paid for, and mine's free, I will let you in my resume program for free. That's how good this free program is going to be, and it's a one-shot deal. If you miss this, you need to be there live, but if you miss it, that's it. It's not going to be free anymore. I probably will allow you to buy the replay, but this is going to be such great instruction. Please, if you are interested, don't miss it. And show up early, because right now it's limited to 100 people. And while we are getting a lot of people to sign up, if we start reaching certain thresholds, I may add some. But please don't miss this. Don't miss this. It's gonna be special. It's gonna be deep. It's gonna be deep. And whatever you do, while supplies last. We had a whole bunch jump off the shelf the other week or so because I was on TV, and that always puts a big pop. But grab the interview intervention book.